Cohen, welcome to Dallas.
It's good to see you again, Bobbie.
We have talked many times in the past, and it's just a thrill to be able to have you in my home territory.
It's good to be back.
Hang on 1 second, I'm not getting your mic.
All right, take two.
Okay, now I'm going.
Rob Cohen, welcome to Dallas.
Hey, it's good to be back with you and Big D, Bobbie.
Well, we've done interviews in the past, and it's just a thrill to have you here in Dallas to talk about stealth. First of all, I enjoyed stealth very much.
I'm glad.
And then I was given the press kit, which is a fabulous press kit, by the way. It really is.
A little compass.
Yes, we'll get a shot of that later. But I read the press kit, and then I thought, wow, I appreciate this movie even more because you have some new technology in it, and it's what gives the picture its pace and its fantastic action look. So let's talk a little bit about the technology. Tell me about this gimbal that you developed for stealth.
I felt in the beginning that it was important because of what I wanted out of this cast, out of Academy Award winner Jamie Foxx and Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel, the great Sam Shepard. I wanted them to have an immediacy, an emotional immediacy of their performance so that the audience could look up there and go, okay, they're really doing this. They're really flying at 2,000 miles an hour. So I built a 100-ton, $2 million machine that would actually do everything that a jet would do. But we put the cockpit section on there, and then it would maybe spin the actors with 3 Gs of force on them, and it would do whatever. And so it gave them a physical experience of being a combat aviator, a naval pilot, that could not be acted. And then their performance could be built on top of that physical reality.
How did you know these actors would be able to take G-forces?
Well, some of them weren't. There's a certain very highly awarded actor who I think is from Dallas, Jamie, who puked, to put it bluntly. Josh Lucas got 2 concussions on the thing from banging his head in the crash landing sequence. And Jessica came out smelling like a rose.
Really?
Really, the gal, the beautiful woman, just got off there and went, "Is that all it can do?" And the man went, "Oh."
I must tell you that years ago, I got a ride in a T-Bird, an Air Force T-Bird, and we pulled G-forces, and it didn't bother me at all. And they didn't tell me that would happen. But when we got back on Earth, I said, how many G's did we pull? And he said, oh, you know about G's? And I said, yes, I've read about that. And I knew, that it was happening because I couldn't lift my hands off my knees, and my neck felt like it was down in my stomach. And so he said, between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And it did not bother me. I did not feel nauseous.
Well, you can be in the sequel.
No, thanks. No, thanks. I've given that up.
The helmets and, be another thing.
But anyway, getting back to the film. Now, there was another thing that you developed, something called the 2-axis rig.
Right.
And explain to me what that did.
Well, when I was writing the script, I had this idea that Jessica would eject out of her aircraft over North Korea, and that we would follow the fall for 35,000 feet, 7 miles of a woman pilot falling with the plane blown up on top of her and all of the burning debris chasing her down to Earth, using, force of gravity. In order to give her the whole physical motion of ejection, I built this 2-axis rig which would spin her and drop her against a green screen, but give her that feeling and allow us to attach cameras and rig cameras so you could see through the whole fall, all the way down. It was Jessica Biel, not a stunt double, and that's how we did that. She handled that very well, not as easily as the gimbal. The two-axis rig, actually, she walked off pretty sick with a headache and all the motion sickness problems, but she's a really, gutsy gal, Jessica. Beautiful, the goddess next door, but buff and tough and a wonderful actress. You know her from Seventh Heaven or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and now you're going to see a whole new. I think she will ascend to real American stardom out of this movie, out of Stealth.
Do these actors get hazard pay?
The amount of money these actors get paid, they should not ask for any more. That it's no one has to cry for actors in Hollywood movies.
Now, also, I don't know if it's been done before, but speak with me about these virtual backgrounds that you used. Has that been done before?
No, Digital Domain, my visual effects house, and I developed a new kind of proprietary software called Tergen, because these jets are moving at Mach speeds, and the only way to create the kinds of wild shots that I have in this film, and there are 838 visual effects shots in the film, was to literally create the entire world in CG. All the mountains, all of the rivers, the things are created in the mind of the computer, so then we can move through that as quickly as we want at 2,000 to 3,000 miles an hour. But it is the Earth, so we would download topographical maps from real data banks and build our Earth as it is in the minds of the computer. Because when you're going that fast, a 10-second shot will go through several hundred miles of terrain. So it was using new techniques to give the audience a first-person ride. So you're in the chair like a pilot. You're not watching flying and combat missions. You are actually flying them yourselves. You're feeling it. And in my movies like Fast and Furious and XXX, I try to create this adrenalized atmosphere in the theater that's a real experience, not just another movie on Friday night.
The movie is built around this thing called Eddie. So how did you come up with Eddie?
Well, in the original script by W.D. Richter, the plane was called the Extreme Deep Invader, and everybody, how the Navy uses acronyms for everything. So that was shortened to Eddie, E-D-I. I wanted him to be a character just like every other human character. He thinks, he observes, he has an evolution, as you know from the surprise ending of the movie, that he goes places you don't expect him to go and makes changes you don't expect him to make. His voice was played by a young actor, Wentworth Miller, and an actor I actually think is going to go some rather big places. And but the design of Eddie, I started with Northrop Aviation, the real defense contractors. Same with the Talon, our long swing-wing fighter bomber. We spent about 8 months designing them. We spent a year building them. They were built, they never flew, but they were there full scale. And Eddie was based on a kind of manta ray thing. And like the Predator and the real UCAVs that are online in Afghanistan and Iraq now, this is not science fiction, but ours are a little sexier for the movie thing.
And of course, Eddie figures very much into the plot when the humans try to override Eddie.
Well, you've got what they call a UCAV, an unmanned combat aerial vehicle, and there are big forces on the Navy to use these vehicles, these aircraft in replacing human pilots, so that it is possible now and in the near future especially, that the Naval Air Force would have no human pilots on the front lines, that it would all be Eddie, send in the Eddies. And that's what the film is a cautionary tale about man and war and how human judgment is superior to computer judgment.
Do you think that will really happen in our lifetime?
I'll tell you how shocking it is for me. The Navy announced about 6-8 months ago that by 2011, 1/3 of the piloted aircraft would be, of the human pilots, would be replaced by these machines. That's 6 years. You're going to be here, and I'm going to be here. A high-ranking admiral told me that the Navy had ordered the last plane, the Joint Strike Fighter, that they're ever going to order for human pilots. So I said, well, what's the obsolescence curve? He said about 20 years if it goes as well as the Tomcat. So I said, well, in the mid-2020s, the whole Air Force is going to have only these planes, only the unmanned planes. And he wouldn't answer beyond that. But he had told me what he had to say, which is that's what he thinks is happening. I think it's good that the movie puts a spotlight on this issue, and I think it's also good that people are aware that this is not science fiction, this is science fact. So it's only a question of how the American public feels about this kind of development in the war profile of the United States.
Could this go over to commercial aviation as well?
Oh yeah, you know, when you realize for years, even since the airplane movies, we had, autopilot, well, anytime a plane takes off or lands, computers are involved now with advanced avionics to take as much risk out of it as possible. It is possible that this technology be applied to civil aviation, because in the end, the basic qualities of taking off, flying, and landing can be handled by a computer. So you literally could have like an automated subway system. You could have an automated aviation, commercial aviation situation. It's a wiggy world we're heading into when technology can become independent of us. And I think there's no way to avoid it.
I hear you talking about this film, Stealth, and the impact of it and the importance of it. And I keep thinking, you keep pushing the envelope, pushing the envelope. Where is there left to go for you, Rob Cohen?
Well, I really think that the audience is entitled for their $10 and all the effort it takes to go to a theater to see a big screen experience. And Stealth is a big screen experience. You can wait for DVD for many movies, but if you wait for Stealth DVD, you will be shortchanging yourself. I think that it's important that the audience sort of every movie take them on another ride in another place, in another emotional experience. It doesn't always have to be, big action things, but I think the big format is something to emphasize in a world where the choice to wait 3 to 4 months is so apparent now in the marketing of these things. The next film I'm going to make is called The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad, with Keanu Reeves and Zhang Zi, the girl from Crouching Tiger. And I'm going back in time with this technology. I'm going back to 10th century China with Keanu as Sinbad, the great Arab explorer who discovers the coast of China in the middle of a civil war, and Zhang Zi plays the deposed princess, and they go on a search for Aladdin's lamp. And it's going to be a big swashbuckling, meeting of new cultures and war and battles and boats and, all that Errol Flynn stuff. I'm really excited.
What was your budget on Stealth?
$125 million. 34 million of it was for the effects. Because these effects, groundbreaking visual effects, are very expensive and time-consuming. But the other part of this was to make the effects and the world blend so that you had jets that don't exist landing and taking off of aircraft carriers that are completely real, and you don't know which was real or which was not real. It's all real. And that's what it took to make this film.
Now, did you have actual aircraft landing on the
Well, our planes never flew.
Oh, okay.
In reality.
Okay.
They were built, but they were just there that when I needed the full-scale prop, in a sense, they flew in the minds of the computer and into the eyes of the audience now. But we were on the Lincoln and the Vincent and the Nimitz shooting, and carrier quals or other missions were being flown all day and all night while we were filming. We were making the movie side by side with the defense of the United States, and it was thrilling, and it was fascinating, it was sobering, and my respect for those men and women on those boats were just like, just went up on a daily basis, because I already had a belief in our defense, but to see these kids and see their commitment was really touching and made me very proud as a citizen.
What's the reaction from the Department of Defense and the Navy to the film?
Been very embracing, very embracing. Now, they're not shocked because they had to approve the script. They had naval advisors with me all the time in Australia. I had the gimbal flown by combat pilots, by remote control, so that the actors were actually getting the motion that the combat pilots knew would happen under certain conditions. It got a standing ovation at the Naval Air Force base. Our premiere in San Diego at North Island at that air base was enormously rousing. I think everybody knows that it is both positive to the men and women of the Navy and also questions some aspect of warfare. And that debate is so alive inside the Navy itself, because you ask, as I did, all these pilots, and you go, well, do you really feel good about these robot planes? And they go, no, it's me. I know what to do. I don't want this thing up there. I don't want it doing anything but being like a spy plane, and yet that's not the intent of these planes. It's not to be spy planes. The intent of these planes is to fly missions. So it's controversial.
Well, stealth, I can promise people, is just action from start to finish. And I think now that they will have some of the background of what went into it, it will give them an even greater appreciation for it. So again, Rob Cohen, thank you so much for coming
Thank you, Bobbie.
and talking about the film.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. That was just good. Okay. What is this special gimbal that you devised so that you get? What is this special gimbal that you devised for these great action shots?
Well, it was important to me that the actors had some physical reality to their performance.
How did you know your actors would be able to take G-forces?
I didn't. It was important to find out.
That's good. Okay. You're using something called virtual backgrounds. Explain that.
Well, when you're going Mach 2 to 3, you're actually covering thousands of miles.
Is it the Navy's intention to do away with pilots?
The Navy announced 6 to 8 months ago that by the year 2011, they would replace.
Is it possible that commercial aviation will do away with pilots?
The nature of flying is really, with advanced avionics, even now,
Is this going to happen in your lifetime and mine?
I think that the high-ranking admiral said to me that the Navy has ordered their last jet for human pilots.
What is this two-rig axis that you used for filming the ejection of Jessica from the airplane?
Well, I wanted to do a sequence when I was writing the script of Jessica ejecting out of her talon and it blowing up on top of her and following. Okay.
Yes.
Is it two-rig axis or two-axis rig?
Oh, what did I say?
Two-rig axis.
Oh, no. Thank you for catching that. Okay. All right, let's do it again. What is this two-axis rig that you devised for shooting What is this two-axis rig that you devised for ejecting Jessica out of the aircraft?
Well, when I was writing the script, I wanted to put a sequence which followed Jessica's ejection out of the jet for 35,000 feet.
Let's see, what else? Okay. What reaction have you had from the Department of Defense and the Navy?
Well, I got a letter from the captain of the Naval Air Station outside of Chicago. She said the other night it got a standing ovation from 1,000 sailors. And I think that was like the greatest review I could have had.
Okay. What was your budget for Stealth?
125 million, 34 million of which were the visual effects.
Okay. I think that'll get it.